Trey Redfield here with Iowa State Athletic Director Jamie Pollard. Been in the saddle since 2005. This has been your only spot where you've led the way for an athletic program. Jamie, why was it so important for you to stay in this spot and make the impact that you have made here in Ames?
Well, Iowa State just fit culturally with our family and what I desired to do professionally. We've absolutely loved our 20 plus years here, and the things we loved about Iowa State 20 years ago when we made the decision to come still exist today. The people are absolutely wonderful, and it's an institution that you can make a difference at.
How's that love grown, you could say, in the last 20 years? Because 20 years is a really long time.
Well, we've gotten more people to kind of be in the fold. You know, I think back to my early years, and if we got 30,000 people in Jack Trice Stadium, we thought it was a win in those first couple of years, and now we average 61,500. You know, we've had immense success amongst all our teams, especially the last several years, but all our metrics are way up. So there's just more people, good people. There were good people in the beginning, but there's just more of them today.
As I've grown up, I've come to learn more of the Iowa State name, and a big reason why is the hires that you've made. Steve Prom, Fred Hoiberg, TJ Otzelberger as well. On the football side, what Matt Campbell did was stellar. Those hires were all made by you. When I think of you, I think of the home run hire guy. So what are the commonalities that those guys shared to help you put together the blueprint that you've been making here at Iowa State?
Well, I think one of the advantages when you lead an organization for 20 years is you get a better feel over time for the art of hiring people. If you'd asked me 20 years ago, I think it would have been more based in science, like who's the next best coach out there, and go try to hire them.
Who's best available.
Correct. And what you learn over time is it's more of an art to get the right fit within the organizational structure. And so I think as time has gone on, we've gotten better at it because you can dial it in better.
Once you're in that position where you have to sit down and you think to yourself, man, I got to find a new guy, like finding Jimmy Rogers in a way. What was the art in finding a guy, I guess, in this example, like Jimmy?
Well, number one, I think what comes with, again, the experience of being in a place 20 years is you're given a little bit more latitude to be able to do what you think. So you can kind of block out all the background noise, all the people that are the armchair experts, right? Secondly, you figure out how at your institution or your organization, what's the best way to get from point A to point Z? Because when I think about it, there's so many different ways you could get off course.
Yeah.
So how do you get from there to there in the most efficient way? And again, having a good culture, having good alignment and leadership from the president down, that they give the autonomy to the athletics director to be able to go do what you think is the right thing to do. And then identifying what is that right thing. And I've just come to feel, especially at a place like Iowa State, that it is absolutely critical that the head coaches fit what this culture is. This isn't a culture where someone can come in and brag about everything they're going to do, or walk over the top of people, or browbeat people. This is a culture that you've got to really relate to the people. You got to be of the people, and then how you operate once you're here. Both Matt Campbell, Fred Hoiberg, TJ Otzelberger, Bill Fenley, you listen to their words. They praise the fans. They go out of their way to make sure that the fans know, we're one of them.
Jimmy Rogers is definitely one of those guys. So I got that sense when he had some choice words about beating the Hawks during Cyclones back in December.
He may regret that he said that, but he said it, so you got to own it.
Now you got to own it, and we're in the season of owning it now. Fall camp is around the corner, and it's now obviously it's the riding into the sunset for you. But since we're on the topic of football, it's the dawn of the new era for this season. Why can Jimmy Rogers be the guy to, I guess, continue the success that Matt Campbell had?
Well, I would say a couple things. First of all, being the head coach of football is a huge leadership responsibility.
Especially at a Power 4.
Well, yeah, but even at any
Even in
level,
general, right.
because of just the amount of people you're overseeing. It's so unlike being the head basketball coach. The head basketball coach oversees 5 or 6 people. The football coach oversees 50 staff
Right.
members, 125 players, right? So there's just a lot of moving parts. Secondly, again, having consistency amongst your staff. The bulk of his staff was with him at South Dakota State, at Washington State, and came here. I mean, they were not deer in headlights this winter. They knew exactly what they were walking into. They had just dealt with it a year ago. They had learned, they even commented things that they would do differently this time around than they did even 12 months ago. So I think that their transition was a lot smoother than just maybe what people think on the outside. Yes, we brought in a lot of players because you had to, but I don't think those players were unfamiliar to this coaching staff. Most of them either were at Washington State, South Dakota State, or were individuals that Coach Rogers and his staff recruited when they were at South Dakota State, but didn't get them, but then got them on the second time around at Iowa State. And then thirdly, and I've described Jimmy this way to himself, is that I think he's modestly confident.
Yeah, I like that.
And he asked me, he goes like, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, you're modest. It's clear. You're not coming in saying all these great things you're going to do. And that plays really well in this environment.
Sure.
But when people listen to your words, it's painfully obvious you're confident about who you are and what you guys are going to do. And I'm not sitting here to say we're going to go to a bowl game or we're going to win X number of games, but I'm pretty confident that this team will be better than people think, will improve throughout the year. And I think back to Coach Campbell's first year 10 years ago. We only won 3 games.
Right.
But when we got to the 12th game, our fans couldn't wait for game 1 the next year because they had seen how much the team improved throughout the year. And my guess is that's what we're going to experience this fall also.
Have you got to take in just how special this all is, building things from the ground up, whether it's a program or actual buildings like Jack Trice, like Hilton, and even CyTown here in the future?
I'd be, disingenuous to say that I don't, but I don't spend a lot of time thinking about it. I'll probably, quite frankly, after I walk out of this office for the last time, have a better appreciation for it. But, we're just Iowans that work hard and are trying to achieve good things and do things the right way and care about people. And so, walking in here every day, I probably take it for granted because it's just, it's just the office that the Iowa State Athletics Director has. I don't view it necessarily as my office. I've had the privilege for 20 years to be in this office. And so I'll probably, when I'm done, have a better appreciation for just the magnitude of what it is. But on a daily basis, I feel pretty normal.
That we over me, where does that mindset from you come from that helps you be so successful every day?
I really don't know. I mean that in all sincerity, is I don't look at what I do as being all that complicated.
Sure.
I know people say this, and when I say it, they're going to go, oh, okay, yada, yada, yada. But I know I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I've never professed to be. I just have never shied away from making decisions.
Sure.
I think part of it is, my background of being a runner and a swimmer, that, I didn't play because the coach liked me. You played because you were the best at it.
Right.
And the way to be, or you were the fastest at it. And if you were the fastest at it, then, good things happened. And so I kind of view being athletics director as just try to be the very best you can be. And so you work really hard and take great pride in trying to get it right. You don't always get it right, and quite frankly, you learn more from your mistakes than you learn from things you get right. But I've never thought wow, this is that complicated. It seems really easy to me.
Yeah.
Maybe, I should take a step back and go, well, it's really not. But I never have thought about it that way, and I think that's what drives us on a daily basis, is just keep doing what we're doing, blocking and tackling and trying to get it right.
Just so much happening in college athletics. It's ridiculous how many different things are going on, how many different judge injunctions you need to change rules. I mean, we haven't gotten to talk to you since what happened on Friday with the Colorado judge approving all class of 2022 athletes. What is your stance on something like this? A rule or an injunction, rather, that basically has squandered the 5-and-5 rule from the NCAA?
Well, a couple things. I've always been just tell me what the rules are, and then we'll figure out how to navigate it. The challenge lately in college athletics is nobody knows what the rules are, because anytime a rule is tried to be enforced, some judge just tries to overturn it. But even since that ruling on Friday, the judge clarified her ruling over the weekend, and it radically changed significantly how anybody can implement that, because if they weren't in the transfer portal, then they can't go anywhere else. And the roster limits aren't going to be waived. Scholarship limits, the cap's not going to be increased. So if you've already spent your money and have your roster filled out, there's no room for that person, and they can't transfer because they weren't in the transfer portal. So, it's all these reaction and unintended consequences of the reaction, and then the reaction. And quite frankly, it's, I think, really hurt our industry, because if I was a fan out there, I would just go, this is just crazy. I mean, somebody stop the madness, stop the carousel from spinning, because it's spinning out of control.
One thing I always appreciate as a member of the media is that you're always there to offer your take. I remember at the Cyclone tailgate tour, just the amount of questions you got asked about the playoff, the 5-and-5. You were there to voice your opinions. Why is it so important for you as a college athletic director, someone that's been in it for as long as you've been, to voice your opinions time and time again?
Well, I don't know if it's important. All I can do is be who I am.
Sure. And
I've always been a person that if you cut me, I'll bleed. If you punch me, I'll bruise. And if you insult me, I'll hurt. I mean, I'm normal. So if you're going to ask me a question, I'm not going to dodge it. I'm going to answer it. And, I always think my parents used to say, if you don't lie, you never have to lie. And, I'll say that again. If you don't lie, you never have to lie. And so I just answer the question. And, sometimes that gets me in some points of friction, because those tend to make national news, because a lot of my peers, don't do it that way. But I've always said this in the Big 12 room. It drives me crazy when we'll have an issue that we're there to talk about and nobody wants to talk about it in the room, and then we go on break and everybody's in the hallway. And it's like, well, don't waste my time then.
Right.
Just if you're going to bring me to a meeting or put me on a committee, then you're going to hear what I have to say. You don't have to agree with what I have to say, but if you're going to take my time and make me be there, then you're going to hear me. So, if I'm going to do an interview and you're going to ask me questions.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here. I'm going to answer the questions. I don't profess to say what I say is right, but it's just what I feel.
It's what you feel, and it's how it always has been. You voice your opinion, you stick to it, you roll with it.
If you don't lie, you never have to tell a lie.
Bingo. Write that down. What we've also gotten to write down is just the history of this. 24 conference titles. Amount of Sweet 16 runs from both men's and women's basketball, stellar. Iowa State's 11-win season. For the football side of things back in 24, just how proud are you of what you've built here, what you've witnessed as the boss?
Well, I take great pride in it, because I know how much it matters to our fans. And a little bit 20 years ago, I felt like, we had this lovable loser mentality, like it was okay. We're going to try, but it's okay.
Is it okay, though?
And I didn't grow up going, it's okay. I grew up with, if you didn't win, you went home really disappointed.
Bingo.
Sometimes you cried, right? And
it's that frustrating.
Well, I still remember my very first bowl game in Houston, and it was on New Year's Day, and our New Year's Eve day. And after the game, there was a alumni party. Mm-hmm. Well, we lost that game. And I was mad. I was angry. And,
right.
I go to the party and people are trying to have fun on New Year's Eve. And I didn't want any part of that, because I was in a bad mood because we lost. Because it's a competition, and that's what you signed up for, is to try to win it.
How's that helped you to have the mindset of, I'm not here to lose. I'm not here to win, but I'm here to more so dominate and be the best that I can be?
Well, I think it's been really helpful and important at Iowa State because, we have some built-in disadvantages. Mm-hmm. We have some advantages, but more often than not, this is a tough job, and it's a tough job for our coaches.
What would you say those disadvantages are, though?
Well, first of all, we're in a small state, and you're sharing it with another major program.
Sure.
Okay, that's I've said it a couple times over the last 2 weeks. I was up in Wisconsin for an event 2 weekends ago, and with a lot of my old colleagues, and I said, you guys don't have any idea how good you have it. Wisconsin, Nebraska, Minnesota, where you're the only show in town from college. Like in Wisconsin, you're either a Badger fan or you don't say anything.
Right.
And here, half the people don't like you just because the color you're wearing, and then if you're good, they even dislike you even more, right? And so I think that having a competitive spirit was really important for Iowa Staters, and I think it helped us kind of move the needle and get us to where we're at. Because I think it's been part of the fabric, the culture of coaches we've tried to hire. You mentioned Coach Rogers.
Right.
Kind of that mentality of, tell me what I can't do, then get the heck out of the way and watch me do it.
Yeah. A let them cook mindset, as us youngins say.
Yes.
In the grand scheme of things, when did you know that you were building something special here?
That's a great question. I don't want to have a flippant answer. Sure. I don't know if I have an answer to that question because it just feels like 20 years ago was yesterday.
Yeah.
And what we've been doing is trying to put, the old adage, build a house one block at a time. But what I would say is some moments in time that will always stick with me that probably speak to that. Clearly going to Ireland. The fact that many people went across the ocean and went to that game, but it wasn't the game, it was the pregame pep rally.
Yeah.
I've said to people, I wasn't at Woodstock, but when we popped up on that stage and as far as the eye could see, you couldn't even see the end of the crowd. That was a pretty neat moment. When we beat Oklahoma State in football on that Friday night, I can't even remember the year now, with Coach Rhodes.
That was one of my first memories of Iowa
It's
State.
on the wall back there.
It's somewhere over here,
yes.
But that was one of my first memories at ISU.
Well, and what was so memorable about that is, first of all, it was a Friday night.
Yes.
We were the only game on TV. They were ranked number 2.
Right.
They should have beaten us. If they beat us, they're in the BCS championship game, and we prevented them from doing that. Probably changed the future of college football because the next year they switched to a 4-team playoff.
Right.
But we did it in Jack Trice Stadium, and all the people that took the field that night. And I remember thinking, there was probably 50,000 people here, but there'll be 200,000 people that'll say they were on the field that night. And then a third one for me was with TJ in his first year in the NCAA tournament. We played in Milwaukee against the Badgers.
Yeah.
And, if there were 18,000 people there, there were 17,900 Badger fans and 100 Cyclone fans.
Which is unheard of normally.
And I knew a lot of the Badger donors, and I remember several of them saying to me, "Oh, it's so good to see you. It's just too bad you have to play us." And I just remember thinking that competitive spirit, like you're going to eat those words, and we beat them. And to see that arena just be dead silent, kind of just confirmed for me, like, okay, we're better than you. And you didn't even see it coming.
You announced your retirement on July 10th. Why was this time the right time?
Well, it's something that my wife and I had always talked about, that we're ready for that next. And when we make that move to the next, I call it the last quarter of the game, I want to do it while I'm healthy and young enough to fully embrace it like I've embraced the last 2 quarters of my life. Mm-hmm. Number 2, in fairness to Dr. Cook with the presidential change, I just went to him and said, listen, I'm not going to be here for 5 years. So would it be better or worse for you for me to leave after you've been here 2 to 3 years, or would it be better to leave now? Because I don't want to derail momentum that you're trying to create. And, we just came to the mutual understanding like it would be better now.
Why was it the right decision to let him know in advance, not just throw it out there, wake up one day?
Because I care. Because I care about Iowa State, and I don't want to. I want this to. I want it to be even more successful than I've experienced. That would, I mean, what would make me more proud than I am today would be to have Iowa State do some of the things that we didn't get done while I was here, to win a Big 12 football championship, to go to the Final Four. I would take great pride in that, knowing that I carried my leg of the baton, much like Dan McCarney did, much like Paul Rhodes did, much like Fred Hoiberg did. You know, they ran their leg of the relay and they handed off the baton to the next person, and now it's my time to hand the baton off to the next person.
That's why there's a 4 in front of the 4x100, right?
Yeah.
Simply put. You've watched a lot of different programs grow, and women's wrestling is one of those that's really starting to become an unbelievably popular sport. It's extremely popular here in Iowa when it comes to girls wrestling and stuff. The NCAA, it's continuing to grow as a sport. Iowa State's now getting onto the saddle with it. Just the wrestling program as a whole is changing entirely. This was a huge move on your end to forefront this and make this something into a reality. What are your expectations as the boss of all this for the wrestling programs, and once it comes around, your expectations as a fan too?
Well, wrestling is a big part of the Iowa State tradition and history.
Correct.
And so our being good in wrestling is really, really important, not only to this institution, but to the sport itself. The fact that we were able to successfully transition Coach Dresser, he did an amazing job for us of restoring our place in the national rankings, and to be able to transition the program to Brent and to Derek, that I have no doubt will continue it and probably build off of that. And then to add in the women's wrestling piece, I think gives us a platform to make wrestling even bigger, both men's and women in this state. Allie is a rock star. I knew what she did for us as a fundraiser. I had no idea about her wrestling background.
Yeah.
I didn't know she was a rock star in the women's world of wrestling. We're seeing it now because the number of kids that have wanted to come and transfer here that are not only nationally ranked, but are world ranked. And so when I think of the future, I hope this fall our cross-country teams win a national championship, because then it would be while I'm still here. But
Which you love because you're the runner guy.
Yes, but the reason I bring that up is we haven't won a team national championship in any sport since 1994.
Correct.
And
that's a team that's very expected to do it, because year in and year out they're dominant.
Yes, and cross-country has been close, but
Right.
they've been second several times in the last several years. But it wouldn't shock me at all if women's wrestling wins that first national championship for Iowa State. And that's why I paraphrase it. If cross-country doesn't get it done this fall, they might not get the chance to be the next one to do it, because
Women's wrestling may have already done it.
She might do it in her first year.
How crazy is that to just see this buildup happen so quickly? It's kind of similar to football in a way, with just how fast everything has happened. But this is a little bit different, Jamie. They haven't even taken the mat yet. Have you taken in how insane the buildup has been with that program?
Well, I think there's a couple things just to keep it all in perspective. Number one, the sport itself is still an infant. Mm-hmm. And on a national level, other than Iowa, there's just not another school with the bandwidth that we're going to be able to throw at it.
Sure.
Right? So we get a distinct advantage right off the bat. Number two, her rock star recognition and what she's been able to attract already is huge. And then number three, that she's not going to be competing against the men for oxygen in the wrestling space. They're going at it together. Our donors are going at it together. This is a concerted, shared effort. Derek's married to Allie. Yeah. So it's not going to be like one is taking from the other. And I think that will also create a groundswell that will help take that program to a whole nother level a lot quicker than it would otherwise.
What do you see as the future of CyTown? How do you want this to come to be when you come here as the retired AD?
Well, first and foremost, CyTown is a really important project for the university. People have made it way too much athletics.
Sure.
Athletics was just asked to manage it on behalf of the university because that's what we do and it's in our footprint. But it's a really important initiative for the university to help the university diversify its future revenues. The university is not going to survive long term if it just says tuition, fundraising, and research dollars. Mm-hmm. Those are three legs of the stool that have been there forever.
Yeah.
But the stool's gotten heavier.
Sure.
And the stool needs more legs. And so diversifying into a real estate project was really important. I also, though, believe it does have some intangible benefits to the athletics department, because if that project takes off the way we anticipate it to take off, it's right in the front door. It's between our two main venues.
Right.
It'll be a melting pot of opportunity for our fans to interact with Iowa State and with our athletics program. It'll create a space which we've already seen capitalized on with concerts, with the high school boys basketball tournament moving here, and there'll be other events that we'll be able to attract throughout the year that will further enhance everything that goes on around the athletic venues.
Will CyTown be done before Boys State basketball gets here, though?
No, it never was planned to be done. Okay. They're coming in 27. We originally had hoped that CyTown would open in the fall of 27. Boys basketball was going to be here in the spring of 27. Right. So we had talked to them about, they're going to be coming in the middle of a construction time period. But, now it looks more like CyTown would open sometime in the spring of 28, because we didn't start this past March. We're not starting the next phase till this fall.
You mentioned those benefits. Once this is all said and done, how can those benefits make this place even better?
I think, number one, we've already seen it nationally. It's been viewed as the first of its kind, and now other schools are trying to replicate it. And so on a national level, it's fascinating to watch Iowa State be seen as a first mover. Yeah. And I think that is really an important value for our institution. We've always viewed Iowa State as being innovative. We invented the computer, the fax machine. We've done some firsts here. And so an entertainment district in the middle of your college campus will also be a first. But I also look from a legacy standpoint, Iowa State Center, James Hilton was a visionary to have that. And now Dr. Winterstein and Dr. Cook will be able to benefit from that as well under their legacies.
A lot of money's been put into different buildings, different athletic programs here at Iowa State. It's also been a reason why maybe some things don't happen just yet. Kind of a figurative question here, but if money was never an issue, Jamie, what is one thing that you would change about this place or about your run here at ISU?
What I would say is the one thing I'm going to regret, or one of the things I'll regret, is that we didn't get to renovate Hilton Coliseum while I was the AD. We have great plans. Those plans have been on ice. Unfortunately, that project didn't happen because the whole creation of paying the student athletes just kind of sucked all the air out of the room. Hopefully someday down the road, maybe through the revenues that CyTown will create, that Hilton can be renovated, because Hilton is a great facility. It's got awesome bones, but it needs a little modernization. It needs more energy, more light to the facility.
Needs a little more muscle?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd describe it as muscle, because I think the
mobility, maybe?
Yeah, the building itself at its core is really strong,
right.
But it's the amenities, the concourses being wider, being more light, being more concession opportunities to make it more of a destination than just a venue you go to watch a game.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for Iowa State to renovate Hilton and get on a project like that?
I'm not going to say it's a 10,
sure,
because the 10 would be,
we need to do this tomorrow.
Yes, I mean the building's not going to fall down.
No.
But I think once CyTown is up, it is going to be painfully obvious that Hilton is lacking. And so I would probably put it in the 7 or 8 category.
Okay. You mentioned that was one of your regrets, which is unfortunate because I was going to ask if you had any regrets. But August is here. New academic year is on deck. We're beginning to ride into the sunset a little bit, Jamie. I don't know if you have a cowboy hat, but you get the cowboy hat on. The ride's about to begin. Other than Hilton, do you have any regrets?
No, not necessarily. Are there things, that you might have done differently with hindsight? Absolutely. And any leader that doesn't admit that isn't really being honest, because time always is a benefit.
Sure.
And when you can look back and say, well, if I'd have known that when we did that, I might have done that instead.
There's a little bit of shoulda, woulda, coulda in there.
Correct. But to say in the moment we would have done anything different, I don't think so, because I think we did what we thought was the right thing to do at that particular time. But the Hilton piece, because we ran out of time and we didn't get to it. I would have liked to have got to be the AD at a Final Four. I got to be at the Final Four as a committee member. It would have been really fun to have had our team be there, but unfortunately we had a couple injuries that prevented us from doing that. So that'll be something. We did get to a Big 12 championship game. It would have been nice to have won one, but we did win the Fiesta Bowl. So,
seen a lot of wins. You've seen a lot of success too, as a 2-time National Athletic Director of the Year. Jamie, how do you want to be remembered?
I hope I'm remembered for embracing Iowa State for what it is and not worrying about what it's not. There's really great people here, both within our athletics department, but also in the community of Cyclone Nation. And you like to think that you inherited something and you did your part to make it better. And I hope that people will think about that and remember that. Ellen and Jamie and their family came to Ames and, did it the right way, cared about Iowa State, and are leaving it in a better place than they inherited it.
New AD is going to come around. This conversation is going to, maybe it's already happened here and now, but as someone who's done this for as long as you have, what does the ideal athletic director need to look like that takes over this university, this institution, what you come to have known as Iowa State?
I think it's a public leadership position, so they've got to be a leader. People get so caught up, they need to have this background or that background or this or that, and all of us have some area of expertise, right? But in the end, this is a public leadership position, and so you're going to need to have really good leadership skills, and you're going to have to, you've got to be out with the people. This job requires you to be of the people. If you're not of the people in the state of Iowa, you just won't have any respect. And so having somebody maybe that has some Iowa background would help, because they are certainly Midwest values, because they'll understand that better. This is a job that isn't a suit and tie job. It's a put on your jeans and a t-shirt and be able to climb in a combine and be able to make people feel like they matter. I've always said this, one of the things I'll miss most, I think, will be the fact that not me, but what this position gets to do to make a difference in people's lives. The number of times in the last 20 years that somebody's been sick or somebody's passed away or somebody needs a letter or a note or a video.
Any form of encouragement.
Forms of encouragement.
Yeah.
And it wasn't me per se, it was the athletics director position that gets to make a difference, because in this state, this position is important.
I want to wrap up with a little segment that I'm going to call the Fast Five.
The Fast Five?
Fast Five.
Uh-oh. 5
rapid questions, because we're
boy.
local 5.
Okay.
5 is the one, in case you haven't heard it before. Very simple, straight to the point. You offer your take, we go to the next. You ready?
Oh gosh, yeah, this isn't good for Jamie Pollard.
We're starting with an obvious topic. Black and white. Gotta ask, are you for or against black and white with the uniforms?
I'm okay with it.
Okay.
I'm for with it. I think we did it too much,
Got it.
but I'm okay with it.
How many games then? Once a year, you think?
Maybe once, twice.
Okay. You love your I-State logo, but if you had to decide on the primary logo at Iowa State tomorrow, are you going with the CyTown that Iowa State wore against Kansas, or are you sticking to your guns and going with the I-State?
Well, I think, I'm not trying to dodge it, but it's harder a question than that.
Sure.
If you were to ask me what's my favorite Iowa State mark,
What is your favorite Iowa State?
walking Cy.
Walking Cy.
It's not even a question to me. The walking Cy is the coolest one. But you have to have a word mark, and the word mark can't be Cyclones. When Channel 5 puts the score bug up there, they can't put Cyclones.
They can't put Cyclones.
You've
right.
got to have a word mark to go with and so the I-State mark is a perfect mark for that. And then secondly, the brand that's been created nationally by the I-State mark, just because we had success.
Right.
But if you ask me what's my favorite mark, it's the walking Cy. Always has been the walking Cy.
My next question is about the playoff. We're going to change it all the time. Decision is made tomorrow, Jamie. 12 teams, 16, maybe even 24.
So I'm supportive of 24,
Right.
provided we don't just switch to 24 and haven't thought about how that's going to happen and what are the unintended consequences.
Correct.
And we, way too many times in college athletics, just make a decision to make a decision and haven't thought it through. And so there are some things that need to be thought through before we switch to 24. Like A, how's the revenue shared? B, what does it mean for the championship game? C, who gets in?
Who gets in?
Right?
What do you do with conference
Because I'm going to
championships
give you a scenario.
Okay.
So we go to 24 and we just say, okay, there's going to be 4 teams from the Big 12 that are in. Okay? If that happens, probably getting rid of the Iowa State game, because non-conference games don't matter anymore.
Matter.
It's only going to be conference games, and you're not going to want to decide who those 4 teams are if you haven't got to play the majority of other teams.
It's no longer a best of 24.
If we only play 9 conference games, so there's 7 teams in the conference you haven't even played, but we're deciding that 4 of them.
Right.
So somebody gets to go because they didn't play the top 4 teams. I guarantee you, if we go to that, it won't be long before you'd say, well, we're just going to play 12 conference games. And so then the unintended consequences are, well, you're no longer playing any non-conference games. You're no longer playing Iowa State. So those are the questions that I like to try to,
You play devil's advocate a little bit.
yes, to winnow through before you just say, oh, 24 is the best. Because 24, yeah, in that, I can wrap my heads around 24 being better than 12, but I want to know what comes with 24 first before we agree to that.
Another tournament, NCAA's.
Yep.
64 or whatever it's at now. Or 68 rather. 68.
Yeah. Now it's going to be 76.
76.
Yeah.
So 68 or 76.
Care less.
Care less.
Care
Why?
less, because it was 32 when I started, and then it became 64, and then it became 68, then it became 70. It's still the NCAA tournament. I'm not going to get caught up in it.
You're still going to fill out a bracket?
Yeah, they did it. Part of, most people don't know this, but the committee made sure that whatever it got changed to still fit on one page because
Thank goodness.
because of the brand of everybody filling out their brackets.
Side note, how many brackets do you fill out every March?
I fill out one because we have the Pollard family tournament every year for 20-some years.
So your team one bracket every year?
I do one bracket.
Thank you. There are a lot of people in my station that are like, oh, I'm making a second one.
Oh,
I could go on and on.
we've had a 20-year.
You could interview me about that whole thing for 20 minutes.
We've had a Pollard family tournament for the last 25 years, and it's based on you get the points for whatever seed number they are if they win.
Got it.
So if you pick a 10 seed to win and they win, you get 10 points. If you only pick the 7 seed, then you get 7.
7. So
And you add it up that way.
last one for you. Dove into it a little bit. Your favorite moment at ISU?
My favorite moment is Ireland.
Yeah.
The trip to Ireland. Not the game itself, but the whole experience.
It just helped that you guys won, though.
Well, it did, because it would have been a long plane ride home for a lot of people.
Right. And then there's the Ireland curse, too. Kansas State saw that.
Correct. But the fact that that many people, this wasn't getting in a car and driving to Chicago or driving to Kansas City.
Right.
This was that many people going over to Ireland, and it was that was real. That'll be my all-time lasting memory of being the Iowa State athletics director.
Anything else you want to add?
No, just thank you for your station's coverage of us during my time, and really appreciate it.
Jamie Pollard, appreciate you a ton. Thanks so much.